Welcome to Daily Book Insight. Let me ask you something. Are you really in control of your thoughts, or do they control you? It's a huge question, right? Well, today, we're diving into how you can actually win that battle.
I love this line. It's so powerful, isn't it? It really makes you think. Our happiness, our sadness, our success, it all boils down to the decisions we make. We're the architects, We're shaping our own reality, choice by choice.
But here's the kicker. What happens when that very tool we need, our mind, just turns into this chaotic storm of worry and regret and just confusion? We get stuck. Completely stuck. Paralyzed by all that noise rattling around inside our own heads.
All right, so here's our game plan for today as we break down Darius Foroux's fantastic book, Think Straight. First, we'll explore what a chaotic mind even feels like. Then, we'll diagnose why we can't think straight. After that, we'll uncover the incredible power we have to choose our thoughts, build a real toolkit for clarity, and finally, map out the path from clear thinking to real action. You ready? Let's dive in. To really get this, we're going to start with the author's own story, a really high-stakes moment of pure mental chaos. And I bet it's going to feel familiar to anyone who's ever felt totally overwhelmed.
So picture this. It's 2014. The author, Darius Foroux, moves to London. Huge, chaotic city. After 2 long months, he finally finds the perfect apartment, packs up everything he owns, his whole life in boxes. Moving day comes. He's there with his family, the truck is full, and the landlord calls. Deal's off. Just like that. They're literally homeless on a London street. You can just imagine the panic, right? That night, his mind just went into a complete spiral, blaming the landlord, regretting the move, just total panic. The simplest solution was completely invisible to him until the next morning, when he finally forced himself to just think straight. And you know what he did? He immediately booked an Airbnb. Simple.
And that right there, that's the whole point of the story. The real problem wasn't about being homeless for a night. No, it was the complete lack of control over his own mind. He had this powerful realization that in a moment of crisis, his thoughts weren't a tool for solving problems. They were the problem. They were the source of the paralysis. He realized he didn't know how to think clearly when it mattered most.
So why does this happen? Why do our minds get so tangled up? Look, it's not just some personal failing. Our brains are actually hardwired with these mental shortcuts, these biases that often lead us down the wrong path. Let's dig into a few of the big enemies of clear thinking.
First off, we're just drowning in information overload and what's called the paradox of choice. We live in an age of endless options. What to watch on Netflix, which career to pick. The sheer number of choices is overwhelming. And instead of feeling empowered, we just feel anxious and confused. And often, we can't make a decision at all.
Okay, now let's look at one of the biggest mental traps out there, the anchoring effect. This thing is sneaky. It's where the very first piece of information we get unconsciously sets the benchmark for everything that comes after.
This happens all the time. A salesperson shows you that super expensive 2 lakh laptop first. That becomes the anchor. Now your brain isn't even evaluating the $70,000 laptop on its own merits anymore. Nope, it's just comparing it to that initial higher price. And all of a sudden, what's still a pretty expensive purchase feels like an absolute steal. That's the anchoring effect right there, playing with your perception of value.
And next up, we have a bias that messes with our relationships every single day. It's called the horn and halo effect. Basically, we let one good thing, the halo, or one bad thing, the horns, completely color our entire perception of a person. It stops us from seeing them for who they really are. Just think about a typical workplace. An employee who makes a great first impression gets the halo. Any little mistakes are just, oh, they're having an off day. But an employee who made a bad first impression, they get the horns. Their best work gets picked apart and met with suspicion. You see, this bias totally blocks clear, fair judgment.
And then, there's maybe the most self-sabotaging thinking error of them all. The book calls it excusitis. It's basically the chronic disease of making excuses. It's a mindset that convinces you that all the reasons you can't do something are way more important than the reasons you can.
I mean, these excuses sound familiar, right? Someone wants to start a YouTube channel but says, oh, I don't have the right camera, when their phone is probably amazing. They want to start a business but say, I just don't have the money, without even looking into low-cost ways to start. Excusitis is just our mind's tricky way of choosing comfort over actually making progress.
So all this sounds a bit bleak, doesn't it? But what if we're not just victims of our thoughts? What if we actually have a choice? This next part is the big turning point, the revelation that you are in the driver's seat of your own mind.
To get this, we have to talk about William James, the man who would become known as the father of American psychology. In his late 20s, he was in a deep, dark depression, feeling totally powerless, and even thinking about suicide. He felt like his life was already written for him. But then, he read an essay about free will, and it lit a fire in his mind.
He made a choice. He decided to conduct an experiment on himself. For 1 year, he would choose to believe that he was in control of his thoughts and his life. That single decision, that act of choosing to believe in choice, it completely transformed his reality, and honestly, it helped lay the foundation for modern psychology.
And this table just illustrates that choice perfectly. This is the choice William James made, and it's the one we all have every single moment. Look, our minds are going to generate all sorts of thoughts. Useless ones, like worrying about stuff we can't control, but we have the free will to shift our focus. We can choose to focus on the useful thoughts, like learning from the past instead of just regretting it. We can't stop thoughts from popping up, but we absolutely can decide which ones get our time and energy.
Okay, so we know we have a choice. That's huge. But now we need the right tools to make that choice stick. So let's build a practical toolkit for thinking straight, full of strategies you can literally start using today.
Here's the first tool, and it is beautifully simple. The next time we're totally stressing out about something, a rude comment someone made, a tiny mistake at work, just stop and ask yourself this one powerful question.
If it's not going to matter in 6 months, then it does not deserve more than 6 minutes of your mental energy right now. This is the 6x6 rule. Just acknowledge the feeling, let yourself feel it for a few minutes, and then consciously let it go. It's an amazing filter for separating real problems from minor annoyances.
All right, now for 5 more killer strategies. First, visual thinking. Get those tangled thoughts out of your head and onto paper. Draw it out, make a mind map, think like a detective connecting clues on a board. Second, avoid doom scrolling. Seriously, be deliberate about what you feed your mind, choose useful, positive info over constant negativity. Third, break the chains of learned helplessness. We often limit ourselves because of things that happened in the past. Use positive affirmations to reprogram your beliefs about what you're capable of. Fourth, become anti-fragile. Don't just survive stress. Use it. Use criticism and pressure to get stronger, like a diamond. And finally, number 5, practice repetition. This is so important. Remember that phrase, nerve cells that fire together wire together? The more you repeat useful thoughts, the stronger those mental pathways become.
So, we've got the tools, but where are we actually going with all this? The goal here isn't just to sit around and think clearly. No, the real destination of a straight-thinking mind is effective, meaningful action. But you gotta know this. The path to action is not a straight line up. You will hit plateaus. There are going to be times when you're putting in the work, at the gym, on your business, whatever it is, and you just don't see any results. This is the exact moment when most people give up. But real progress happens when you push through that plateau, trusting that your efforts are building up even when you can't see it yet. And that really brings us to the heart of it all. The ultimate prize for thinking straight isn't a life with no problems. That's not realistic. The prize is developing a calm, resilient mind that can face any problem without getting thrown into chaos. It's the power to respond thoughtfully instead of just reacting emotionally. That's real strength. That is inner peace. Thinking straight is a skill, and it's one that can genuinely upgrade every single area of your life. If you found this useful and you want to help others upgrade their lives too, please hit like, subscribe to Daily Book Insight, and share this with your family and friends. Thanks so much for joining me.